Hello guys, in this video we are going to discuss about what is authentication, what is authorization, scenario based explanation, and what is the difference between authentication and authorization. Okay, so let's get started. So what is authentication? It is a process of identify someone's identity by ensuring that the person is the same as what he is claiming for. So let's take an example. So whenever you are trying to log in into Facebook, okay, so there you are providing the username password, okay. So that username password you already have configured it, like when you were signing into Facebook, so you have provided the username and password you have set for that your account, okay. So same at the time of login you are providing it, right? So username password is an authentication method, okay, one of the authentication method, okay. So this username password is already stored in the system, okay. When you enter the credentials it will match with the data stored in the database or system. If it matches, then you will get the access grant, and if your credential you have provided don't match with the data stored in the system, it won't allow you to log in, okay. So this is what authentication means, okay. So now let's discuss about method of authentication. So there are three types of authentication. First is single factor authentication, second is two factor authentication, and third is multi factor authentication, okay. So I will explain all these three methods of authentication one by one. So let's start with the single factor authentication. So just before I told you, like logging into Facebook, they are required only username or password if you are not enable two factor authentication. So easily by providing the username and password correctly for your account, you are able to log in into system, okay. So this is like single factor because providing username password you are directly logging into your system. Vulnerable, okay, if someone gets your password or finds out or cracks your password, he will be able to log into your system. So it is not more secure because like like account password are been hacked by the hacker. So like easily someone having that username or password can, someone pretending you can log into the system. So like it is advisable to not use the single factor authentication. You should use at least two factor authentication. I'm going to explain you, okay. So this was single factor authentication, okay. Let's go to second factor authentication, okay. So this method is more secure compared to the first one. As I told you, it comprises of two factor of authentication. Typically someone knows, in the screen you can see, for example, like username password, and after that you might be having OTP verification or security token, something else. Like this is two step of verification or like you can authentication. So it's more secure than the first one, okay. Well, like you can see, you can take an example of bank, okay. So when you are logging into bank providing the username password, after that you will get a screen of OTP verification in which the registered mobile will get the OTP. And that OTP you have to enter in the application to get into the system, or you can say log into mobile application or bank's application. So it is a high more secure than the first one. So now let's see the third, which is multi-factor authentication. So this is one step further to make your authentication process even more secure. Okay. So it is having normally three or more factors. So in the screen you can see. So we can use either like username password plus OTP plus security questions, or else you can use username password OTP or mobile authentication app, or with USB key or fingerprint or face recognition. In this screen you can see I have taken few of them, as a fingerprint authentication app, username password, or OTP authentication app. Like any set of factors you can use. Okay, it's not compulsory a username should be there. You can use either of 3 or 4. Okay, so it's not like mandatory like 3 or 4. You can take more also, like minimum it should be more than 2. So it comes in the category of multi-factor authentication. So these are all 3 methods of authentication. Okay, so multi-factor authentication is the most secure one. Okay, so usually it's more feasible or recommended to use multi-factor authentication. Okay, now let's see the flow, how authentication is done. Okay, how authentication works in the real world. Okay, you can see a diagram, okay, in this screen. So let's take a device as a client and server, you can see. So whenever you are opening the www.facebook.com, when you are hitting, so client is accessing the server, because www. any social site is on server. Okay, so you are accessing that, writing, hitting www.facebook.com. Okay, now the server will accept that request and send a response. Okay, so it will send the login page or the home page, okay, according that what you have send in the request. Okay, so now the third step, you are submitting username password in the login screen. So it will be sent to the server. Okay, now as you have already signed up earlier, yeah, and you are trying to log in, the data will be already stored in the database. So the username or password you have entered, it will be matched with the data stored in the database. If it is matched, okay, so like you will get the access to the home page, or you can say feed page. So you can see in the fourth step, server will send identification data, cookies, token, etc. If you are successfully, like, the data you have provided, username password is correct. Okay, and if it's not, like, it will throw like author username or password is wrong. Okay, so after in the fifth step, suppose you are clicking on request. I'm talking about the Facebook page. You can say the request will be handled as you are requesting. Okay, you are want to see the friend request, number of friend request or profile. You are clicking on it. So server will entertain the request. So like this, the authentication process has been done. Okay, this is all about authentication. Okay, now let's move to what is authorization. Okay, so authorization is a process of verifying that you are allowed to access a particular resource or area or not. Okay, authorization is also known as access control of privilege control. Okay, so let's talk about the file structure. Okay, file also have permissions, access control, so that comes under authorization. Like that file is in protected. Okay, or only the user or certain group can view, so that comes under authorization, because other people won't be able to see that file. So that is a access control, which is also like authorized, you are authorized to use that file or not. So this is what authorization means. Okay, let's see this diagram. So user is trying to access the admin area. So let's take like any website or anything, have two, there are several access levels. Okay, normal user, admin, manager, like this. Okay, so in this diagram you can see uh, user is trying to access admin area. Okay, so the user logs via username password. Okay, he is able to log in, but the user is having the permission, role, or claim to use the server or not, or service or not, or resource or not. So that will be compared, that user permission with the required permission to access that admin area. So if it is matching, then he will be able to, or she will be able to view the admin area. If not, user is not authorized, no entry. Okay, so this is the authorization scenario, what is the flow of authorization. Okay, So let's take a real time example. So you have booked a room in a hotel, okay? So you are going to check in that hotel. So at the gate, or you can on reception, they will ask for your valid ID, okay? You have booked the hotel via online, okay? Online like booking, okay? So they will ask for the valid ID, so that they will match with the booking details. If you are able to provide it, then it's fine, like you will able to enter the hotel, okay? Check in the hotel. But if you are not able to provide the valid data, so think about, like, this is an authentication process. So you are providing the valid data as a credential. If it is matching with that database, you will able to log check in the hotel. So this is a real time example of authentication. Now you can see where authorization comes in the picture. Suppose you are checked in the hotel, you are authorized to use the room, okay, allocated room. Let's say the hotel is having gym, or some kitchen area, cafeteria, okay. But in the booking, you are only have allocated the room, you don't have the authorization, or you are not taken the subscription to the gym. The kitchen area, or you can say some VIP room, you are not able to, you won't be able to access it. So that is because you don't have access right to access that VIP room or kitchen area. So that so this is the authorization comes into the picture, because you are not authorized to use that, but you are authorized to live in the room which is allocated to you. So this is the authorization in real life example. Now let's see what is the difference between authorization and authentication. So as the example I have provided, you can clearly see, like, authentication is like providing the credential, and they will check in the database that you are a valid user or not, that the credentials are matching or not. So that is authentication. But authorization is like, you are you have valid credential, but you don't have access to use particular resource. Like, you are normal user, you cannot use the admin panel. So this is the authorization, access control. So this is all the difference between authorization and authentication. Now the conclusion, the or we can say the safety conclusion, okay. So it is like, we should implement both the things. Both the things are important to provide security or safety to the resource, okay, or individual, you can say. So what I can conclude is, authenticate means verifying the identity of a user or a process. Authorize, it determines if the user or system has permission to use a resource or carry out an action on it, okay. So this is a basic difference between authentication and authorization. I hope so you understood both the terms, what are the difference, what actually authentication is, or what actually authorization is. Okay, what is the real life example scenario where authentication authorization is used. Okay. Okay, so that's all. Bye, take care, and explore more about authentication and authorization.